All right, so yesterday I released a video about ESLint and how you can use ESLint to make your code cleaner and basically to run checks against your code. And someone kind of reminded me about Prettier. I do use Prettier on all my projects as well. And I didn't really talk about Prettier in that last video, so I want to kind of add on to the last video and kind of talk more about why you should use Prettier on your projects in combination with ESLint. So I'm working on a Next.js project, and this is called WDJ Online Classroom. I think it's a public repo. I'll probably put a link in the description. But I just recently added Prettier and ESLint to it and just went through and cleaned up a lot of the files because, again, like I said, having those two tools on your code base makes your code a much better experience, especially if you're working with a team of other developers who might have different coding styles than you. So I wanted to point out that ESLint is great for checking like logical issues, right? There's a lot of things in JavaScript that you could potentially do wrong and in TypeScript that you could potentially do bad. And you want to have these linting rules in place to verify that you're not doing something that's going to bite you in the butt later. Okay, so there's tons of different rules. I kind of talked about that in the last video. And you basically install ESLint, you configure it, and you get an ESLint JS file or JSON file, whichever one. But what I'm showing you right here is ESLint in combination with the Prettier plugin, right? So down at the bottom, I have plugins, and I'm setting it up with Prettier and also TypeScript ESLint, and some other things as well. I mean, you can go to the repo if you want to clone this and try to like play around with it. But what people do is they'll have ESLint and they'll run it just to keep the logical parts of your code as clean as possible and try to prevent any type of bug food from getting into your JavaScript/TypeScript code. But Prettier is another like linting tool that a lot of people use to automatically format their code base, right? So before I kind of show you this, I do have two extensions set up. I have the Prettier extension, I believe. Actually, I don't even have the Prettier extension installed. I just have ESLint. And I think if you just have ESLint set up and you have the Prettier plugin set up as a plugin, it'll just work. So this is the only extension you really need to have in VS Code to get that going. But yeah, so there's this ESLint file that defines the rules. And right now I'm just saying, just do all the Prettier stuff. And then additionally, like use a lot of the recommended things that ESLint has, right? So out of the box, when you use ESLint, other people have already configured a bunch of rules, and there's people out there who probably know more about coding than myself and you. So I would recommend that you just do their recommended stuff that they suggest until you get really good and you can kind of pick and choose what rules you want to enable or disable. And the second file is a Prettier config.js, right? So in here, you have some limited configurations you can do with Prettier, such as like your tab width, if you want semicolons, do you want single quotes or double quotes, how many attributes do you want in a line, do you want trailing commas, etc. But for the most part, I think most people just use the defaults that Prettier provides you, because just by doing that, you're going to get a lot of value out of like how it formats your code. Okay, so everything here is kind of formatted based on Prettier. So like if I were to try to put this on one line, it'll put it onto a new line. I think there's like an 80 character max. So once you've reached over like so many characters, it'll just push your code and format your code to make it look nice. And as a beginner, like this is stuff that you have to have and set up, because like you don't want to waste time, formatting your code. And again, Prettier is the thing that's making the code look nice. ESLint is the thing making sure that you don't do things that are potentially bad, right? So if I were to define a variable up here and say like, I don't know, name, and I never use it, that's more of like an ESLint rule that's being checked. And in fact, I'm using TypeScript as well. So maybe TypeScript is actually checking this. And if I hover over this, you'll see that I actually get an ESLint error. You can see right here it says ESLint, and then it tells you the type of error that is happening here. So no unused variables. And if you wanted to kind of turn that off for your entire project, you could take this rule and you can go to your rules down here, and I could just paste it in here. And I could just go ahead and say like off. And now that will never complain to me again, right? So it's really useful to keep it on though. Like this is just an example of how you can configure ESLint. But this is like the setup that I would probably do in all my side projects. And I'm slowly trying to tweak this as time goes on to make it more like my style. But if you're a beginner, like definitely use the recommended things, that the recommended extensions, so that your code will look really nice. I've definitely seen some people send me code, it just looks terrible. Like, I'm not trying to be mean to their code base, but if they just had a linter set up, like they don't have to worry about indenting stuff. And what really helps is it allows you to just write sloppy code and you save your file and it automatically formats it, right? So if I wanted to add like another if statement and say like if false, I don't know, like console log something, And then, I don't know, I can just do whatever I want. Like, I don't have to worry about, do I need double spaces or double quotes or single quotes? Once I save, like, it's just going to fix everything for me. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I could really say about this video. I just wanted to kind of make a quick little video to explain, like, if you're using ESLint, definitely use it in combination with Prettier. I'm using a Next application, and if you look at my package.json, I think I have like some Prettier plugins set up. I got like ESLint plugins for Prettier. I got Prettier. Anyway, yeah, I mean, you can like look through this project and kind of pick and choose what you want from it. But I guess the main takeaway is like the less you have to think about formatting your code and the less you have to think about maybe doing things that are bad in your code base, the better, right? So there's other linters out there as well. There's like linters for security flaws. There's linters for making sure you have the correct written shell scripts. I don't know if your project uses any .sh scripts, but there's different linters for different languages and different like types of programming. And you just want to make sure that stuff is set up in your project so that, you and your team can actually start writing quality code and not waste a bunch of time trying to fix stuff that's really not worth wasting your time on. Anyway, I hope that kind of gave a good overview. I didn't really plan for this video, so I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I wanted to just pin on the points of I use Prettier and ESLint in combination on my projects, and I highly recommend that you do it as well. And I'll put the link to this repo in the description if you want to just take a peek how I did it. And maybe you can kind of steal, or not steal, but borrow the exact same rules that I did just to kind of get the ground running if you're using a Next.js application. Yeah. Anyway, have a good day and happy coding.